This orc list has been smashing it. If you play orcs, you need to know about it because trust me, it's amazing and you're going to want to be able to run it. And if you play against orcs, you need to know about it because you need to learn the fundamentals of how to freaking counter it. It's a total beast. I'm extremely proud of it. It's a doozy. I've been talking about it in the last few videos, and here is the video where I'm going to talk how to run it, what it is, and what its strengths, what its weaknesses are. I'm going to use TTS to demonstrate exactly how to run it on the table as well. So stay tuned for the strongest freaking Waaagh list in the game. So currently, with this army, I am 21-1. The only match I've lost was against Inari on a UKTC map. I'm not familiar with UKTC maps, and it was the first time playing against Inari. It's just what it is. I always tend to expect to lose my first match against new armies, and that was a strong army, and I definitely got smashed in that one match. And since then, I have beaten Eldar 5 times, and I am 21-1 with the list, which makes me very pleased about it. I'm currently hobbying it up. I really hope I get it fully hobbied for my RTT this weekend. There was a little snafu with the post office, so something wasn't delivered that needed to be delivered. So maybe I won't be able to run it at my RTT this weekend, and if that's the case, then I'll definitely run it at my next tournament, and I'll give you guys all the results from that. But currently on TTS, where I've been running in several different leagues, several different scrims with WTC teams, and it has just been annihilating everyone, and it's brutal. So let's break it down. This list, it's freaking rocks, and it is Warhorde, and I'm going to run it unit by unit, and then I'm going to show it on the TTS screen. I'm going to show you what goes in what transports, how to move it, all the good stuff. We've got 21 individual units in the army. There's 23 actual units if you include the characters, but since the characters are attached, you've got 21 moving bodies, basically. The army stages unbelievably well. It is mounted in trucks, meaning it's going to cause activation locks on your opponents. So if your opponents blow up a truck, that means they're not shooting the things inside unless they have another unit to activate into it. So it's very, very fast. It gets to where it needs to go extremely well. Its defensive power is in its distributed strength. So it's not any one unit that can just survive. Basically, what that means is I don't have any one unit that can just stand here and tank an enemy unit. It just won't happen. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that every single individual piece hits like a freaking truck. So if you want to deal with this big threat, but you don't deal with this big threat, well, threat number 2 is going to just cause you massive, massive problems. There's a ton of OC in it. There is a ton of hitting power in it. You have, since it's playing Warhorde, you have fight on death to counter your fights first units and other melee armies. You also have 5 transports in it so that you can do the flotilla strategy, which I demonstrated in a previous video, to really counter your melee armies as well. So there are just tons of play into everything. There are 13 squig bombs in this list, which will absolutely wreck things that your opponent does not want wrecked, whether that be a lone up character, whether that be a fights first unit of Howling Banshees that are hiding behind a wall, whether that is a Avatar of Cain. It doesn't matter. Those squig bombs just cause insane damage. They also, I know I had an opponent who was running Lion L. Johnson, and he accidentally chose the wrong aura. He chose it with the command point interruption aura, which is typically very good against orcs. I just squig bombed him to death. I run it into Lion L. Johnson, where he had the 4-up Fiona Pain aura, but between all the squig bombs, even with the 4-up Fiona Pain aura, he still took like 7 to 8 wounds. He low rolled on one tank buster, I think, made it through when I shot him, and then suddenly Lionel Johnson is dead and shooting from the orcs. So it's just all these squig bombs really skew the math. This army has crazy OC, so we get to steal objectives with OC bombs, which means that we don't necessarily have to charge units that we don't want to charge. Let's say your enemy has a unit of wardens with the blade champ, and they're standing on the objective. Well, guess what? I'm just going to put 10 Gretchen and a Rutherd on the objective, wave at you, and just enjoy the fact that you don't score the objective. And now next turn, because of the way I'm going to wrap my Gretchen around you, you're probably just going to have to charge Gretchen with your wardens, which is a horrible feeling. Tank busters in this army solve a lot of the problems that Warhorde previously was really suffering from. So tank busters, especially with the addition of the pulse rockets, the new data sheet, they just blitz most dedicated transports. Some dedicated transports are a little bit tougher than others. So for example, the Sagittar is still a little bit tough to crack with them. But if it's a Rhino, if it's an Impulsor, if it's these things, tank busters generally just pretty much always wipe them. And we've got enough redundancy to guarantee that we can open up the transports, or we can even open up the battle tanks that otherwise we just couldn't reach. So the tank busters really solve a big, big problem. They also solve a problem into a lot of your elite infantry armies. So let's go back to the Warden example. When I have a unit of tank busters and they're shooting at the Wardens, dude, you better pop your 4-up Fiona Pain and shooting, because otherwise I'm gonna get, all I need is like a teensy-weensy bit of luck, and then suddenly you just lose 3 Wardens to 1 tank buster shooting activation, and it's brutal. just one thing that you really have to remember about this army list is each individual unit will die instantly. So there's nothing in it that's tough. One of the big tricks I like to use is I'll have boys embarked in one of the trucks. You blow up the truck, the boys now get out onto the objective, they stick to the objective. So there's lots of ways to increase your survivability, but it's never one unit that's survivable. All right, so let's talk about what the actual list is. This is the Merry Green Go Round. 21 units. Here it is, guys. We've got a War Boss with Power Claw, and we've got a Beast Boss. Those are the only 2 characters in this Orcs army, which is wild to me because I am so used to running 5, 6, 7, 8. I've run 9 character lists in Orcs and I've loved them. So this is such a huge departure from the typical Orc list that I've been running. But I have 2 characters. I've got the War Boss and I've got the Beast Boss. No enhancements. I would love some enhancements, and there are ways that I could make an enhancement happen, and we'll talk about that after we go through all the lists though. So 1 War Boss with Power Claw, 1 Beast Boss. We have 1 unit of Beast Nagas, obviously with the Beast Boss. Then we have 2 units of boys. They are going to be outfitted with Power Claw on the knob and a rocket launcher, and everyone else is going to have the choppers. 3 squads of Gretchen. This is really important. You're going to start with 1 squad of Gretchen on your home field, and they're just going to stand there, hold your home field, be fishing you, CP all freaking game. You're going to have 1 unit of Gretchen that's going to be embarked in a truck, and I'm going to show you that when I get to the TTS screen, so you'll be able to like see it, so you don't have to just keep everything in your mind as I'm talking to you about it. And then I'm going to have 1 in strategic reserve. The 1 in strategic reserve solves a really big problem because in round 2 or round 3, that unit comes down and they can more or less fill up an entire board edge, more or less blocking all of your opponent's reserves. And it can be a very big issue. Then we have 1 unit of 5 knobs with Power Claws. Obviously, they're running with the War Boss. 3 units of Breakas. All of them are with hammers. You're not taking the Knuckle Dusters. That's a terrible decision. Don't do that. All with smash hammers except for the guy who takes a take hammer. And they are all unled. And the reason why they can be unled is because I'm running it in Warhorde, so they all natively have sustained hits. And I can always, Unbridled Carnage to give them sustained hits on 5. They don't work unled in any other detachment. So, because you really need those sustained hits, because they only have the base attacks 2, which means in the wall they go up to attacks 3. But with just 2 attacks each, hitting on 3s, they tend to whiff a little bit. So you need the redundancy of just a little bit more reliability. Because now in Warhorde, outside of the Waaagh, I can send 1 unit of Breakas to kill a Vindicator fairly reliably, which is very important. Now this does include their Squig Bomb that they're going to throw. But that's a very important thing that you have to consider is just how do you use them. And I use Breakas outside of the Waaagh all the freaking time. Then I've got 3 units of Tank Busters. You're going to take a Smash Hammer on the knob, and then you're going to take Pulse Rockets. Now, people will argue about this. They'll say that the knob should take 2 Rocket Pistols, and because the Smash Hammer is bad. I disagree. So the way I use my Tank Busters all the freaking time is they get out, they blast something, and then people tend to forget that they have Strength 5 base, which means when you Waaagh, they go up to Strength 6 base with their close combat weapons. So even their close combat weapons are just obliterating most infantry, whether it's elves or Tau units or guardsmen. So I almost always charge them in. So I get them out, I walk them, throw a Squig Bomb, shoot all their rockets, and I charge them into something. Many times, maybe the battle tank that they're shooting survives on 3 wounds. I charge them in. The Smash Hammers can very often, and has very often, done the last damage that I need to do to kill that tank, which is a huge freaking deal. So I take the Smash Hammer instead of the 2 Rocket Pistols. Then I have 1 unit of Commandos, Power Claw on the knob, a Rocket Launcher, a Burna, everyone else has Choppas. The reason why I take the Burna is because elves are just going to be so popular in the meta now, and it's just really nice to be able to shoot a Burna at them at round 1. I'll talk about it a little bit more on the TTS screen in about 3 minutes, but I don't expect my commandos to really live past turn 1 or past turn 2. So they might activate once, so I don't really care too much about the outfit of the commandos. It's nice to have the Burna, in my opinion. Then I've got 2 squads of Storm Boys. 1 will always start in Deep Strike, and 1 will basically always start on the board. 5 trucks, 0 enhancements. Guys, this is the freaking list. I'm going to talk about a few considerations of the list. And then, you know what? Actually, I'm just going to go to TTS right now. And then I'll come back and I'll talk about some considerations on how you might fit the list to suit your needs a little bit differently. But I want to show you exactly why it works this way. And I'm going to show you how I move it on the tabletop. So let me go to the TTS screen. All right, here we go. So I have deployed as if I'm just playing a game, right? So this is more or less how I would start the deployment. Right here, this is a search and destroy map, GW3 maybe, I think. So if you look at the way I'm deployed, and this is a variable. It doesn't have to be this way, but this is just the way I have chosen to be right now. I'm going to have a truck right here, my blue truck right here. Yes, the blue truck can easily be shot turn 1. It is not a problem. However, when I get out, I'm going to get up behind the wall. with either the breakers or the busters, whatever's most important to save. And the other one's going to get out by, around here, which is going to be a very challenging way for my opponent to shoot the units that get out. I'm planning on staging these units right in this corner anyway. So I don't actually care if I lose this truck turn 1. So yes, the truck is visible, but it's no problem. So if it does get blown up turn 1, breakers and busters in my turn are just going to run up to be right here, perfectly safe. And the boys are also going to run up there to be perfectly safe. If I go first, I'm going to basically just get out the breakers and the busters, and they're going to go stage right here. The boys are going to jump in, and then the truck is going to advance to try to get over here. They'd probably need a pretty good advance, so I might actually just end it right here, which would put me in very good striking range of their natural expansion, which is a big problem for my opponent, having a big unit of boys to OC bomb it that early in the game, in round 2. So that's basically why this truck is exposed, because I just don't particularly care if it lives. And that's just due to the nature of one of the problems with armies like this is that you have so many units, it's very hard to deploy everything perfectly safely. So what you do is you decide what is okay for you to be killed. And for me in this army, it would be this truck. And just so you see the color coordinations, basically every truck is going to have a unit of breakers and a unit of busters inside of it. I'm going to have one unit of beast snaggers inside the red truck, just so you can see. So this would be the red truck. The others are all breakers, busters, except for the yellow truck, which is going to be Gretchen. So Gretchen start in this yellow truck. All right, so that's why this is deployed like this. Then here, my Gretchen are in this truck for a very simple reason. Oh, sorry, these guys shouldn't be like that. I'll fix the Stormboys in just a second. So the Gretchen get out. I've perfectly measured so that with a 3-inch disembark and a 6-inch move, they can get in the middle. They can get me area denial. They can cleanse. They can do whatever I need them to do. They could also just advance to stand right here. No problem. And if you see, I've got a big unit of boys on my home field here. Maybe I could just kind of color them. I'm going to make them yellow as well, because their job is turn 1, since my boys control this objective, it becomes sticky immediately. So I don't care if indirect happens to shoot my Gretchen off or anything like that. These Gretchen get out of this truck to come up here or advance into the center there, and my boys will then jump inside the truck. Right, so I do the whole like taxi strategy. If you guys don't know what the taxi strategy is, then watch some of my other videos and you can learn the taxi strategy yourself. So Gretchen can get out. I can also even then just put the truck there as well. So if people want to, they're going to have to kill all the Gretchen, and then they're going to have to kill the truck, and then boys are going to come out, and they can actually sticky the middle for me turn 2, which would be actually very exciting. Now, this isn't as aggressive. I'm not always that aggressive, but it's an option that I actually have. Okay, then I've got 2 trucks here. Both of the purple one is going to have breakers and tank busters in it, and the red one is going to have beast snags with the beast boss in it. Now, the reason why I'm deployed specifically on this map like this is right here, your opponent would have to, with a 10-inch move from any battle tank in the game, he still can't see me. Now, remember, I'm going to move these Storm Boys in just a moment. Sorry, I just forgot to deploy them correctly. So with a 10-inch move from any battle tank in the game, they can't get there, which means you have to be able to move. I think it would be like 11, maybe to 11 to be able to see him. Yeah, so you'll need an 11-inch move to be able to see this truck. And that is a tall order, because there's just not many with that move 11 inches. Some people can, but if it's playing against, say, Gladius, then they would have to use their stratagem for adaptive tactics, which is going to cost them CP. And once again, I just don't really care if these 2 trucks get popped from turn 1, because if they do, well, then I'm just going to stage right here. And there's no way he's going to have more than 1 or 2 devastating units that can pop right here. If the beast snaggers do get popped turn 1, well, I can, once again, just disembark my breakers and my busters to be safe or to murder the tank that comes up. And then the beast snaggers will then hop into the purple truck, right? So there's just so many opportunities for me to hop into different trucks to keep myself deliverable and keep myself active. And then in this truck, I've got snaggers and we've got busters as well. And this truck's basically just going to come up here turn 1. It can do cleanse. It can hold the objective. It can get breakers out. It can do whatever it needs to do for me. Another option is you could put the Gretchen truck up here as well, and then just have another buster truck here. But I really like being able to send Gretchen to the center. But the other option would be to do it like this, and you can do it like this, and then you would just take your Storm Boys and you would have them like somewhere around here, just so that they could advance and charge or advance into the middle to get you area denial turn 1 as well. So this is another option that you could do. I don't particularly like this option as much, but it's to each their own, right? So this is the way I would deploy this map. Turn 1, my nerds get out, my boys jump in. Let me just kind of show you what that looks like. Whether I go first or second, because the boys are basically unshootable here. And let's just say I go second and this truck gets destroyed. So these guys are all basically just going to get out like roughly right here. Let me just put up the aura so you can see. how this works. Just so no one says, oh, he's cheating, he's not measuring. Of course I'm measuring, guys. I always measure. So this is a big unit here, and then the busters maybe just get out like right here. Cool. And so then they would have to have a second shooting unit to shoot the busters, and if they do, yeah, then the busters get shot. And if one of my models die on the disembark, I'll kill the guy with the hammer, right? Now, let's say I go first, and this truck isn't killed, then I still basically will disembark more or less like this. Although what I'll do is I'll disembark one at a time, so I'll disembark these guys and then advance them here. And then I will also disembark the busters in this exact same spot, and then I will just put them like roughly here. Arrgh! You can't stand up there, you silly bear. And then the boys will just hop in the truck. So that's the taxi strategy, because when the boys hop in the truck, now the truck is free basically just to move right here. Perfectly safe, can't really be seen from any specifically good angle. Your boy could maybe move up here to shoot, and if you're really concerned about that, just don't move that far. Just pull him up back a little, no big deal. But now you're perfectly staged to really hurt your opponent a lot. Your opponent can't really charge you through the wall, because if they do with melee units, you're just going to fight on death with tank busters, and that really badly hurts. And basically you just repeat everything else here, right? So depending on whether you want the Gretchen truck here or there, you're more or less, you're just going to be positioned to have boys hop in whatever truck. So you're just going to play the taxi game all game long. And that's basically the way the army deploys. I've got this one unit of commandos here. Now this unit of commandos does a different job based off of what army I'm going to be playing, right? So if I'm playing, say, Eldar, and I know they've got 2 units of striking scorpions, and they really just want to move block the crap out of me turn 1, I'm actively very happy just to deploy my commandos like this. And I really don't care about them dying turn 1. It really does not matter to me if they die turn 1. Their entire purpose is to guarantee that I do not get move blocked. It's to guarantee that my opponent's freaking striking scorpions do not come and lock me in my deployment zone. They can come lock me here. I don't care about them locking me here. I don't want them locking me here. So I just deploy the commandos in such a way that I will not be locked. That allows me to always get out of my deployment zone, always stage where I need to stage, and just be, generally speaking, a happy camper. If my opponent has no infiltrators, and I'm just not concerned about them move blocking me turn 1, then commandos can be, basically doing whatever you want them to do. They can deploy up here, they can deploy up here. You can start them in this little corner of this area. If you start them in this corner, then that means that this truck can maybe be deployed a little more safely, or even in strategic reserves. So it really just depends on the opponent that you're facing. But once you do this, guys, you have so much presence as the orc player. It's really challenging for your opponent to deal with it. This is such a big deal to be able to pop out your Gretchen, have them go here, they get you a cleanse, and they get you an area denial. They get you an extend, they get you a secure no man's land. Over here, we have the way we had the boys deployed. No matter what, guaranteed 100%. I've got containment now. You also can't charge a boy squad with infiltrators, man, because infiltrators will melt if they go into boys. Say striking scorpions want to charge the boys. I don't care, because I'm just going to spend 1 CP for Artist Nails. Suddenly they're winning me on 6s, and I'm just going to murder them in return. It just doesn't matter. So boys are just a brutal unit. They can't be charged by almost all infiltrators. I'm sure someone could find an example of an infiltrating unit that can comfortably charge the boys. So I've got containment. They could obviously stand here and stop me from containing, which, that'd be a little bit annoying, but still really not that big a deal, because I can just get out one of these squads to give me the containment. So you've got tons of options for every single secondary that you're ever going to need. A lot of times, this truck, say this truck wants to come up here and just do the action. Well, now my opponents have to shoot the truck. The boys hop down. They sticky the objective in my turn. I've got a wave of Gretchen that have to die first. It's not that your opponent can't kill all of that, but it's that they would have to dedicate too many units. And the second they dedicate enough units to pick up a truck, the Gretchen that get out, and the boys that get out, well, suddenly they get annihilated by everything in my army. That just goes full send at them and just overwhelms them in one horrible turn. So that's basically the way the army stages. That's the way it plays. It's disgusting. It's brutal. Take it from me. Take it for a spin. Try it out. You do have to position really, really well. Now, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, and we're going to talk about some considerations for the list that you might want to change to make it a little bit of your own. I'm not changing anything. I've got enough practice with it. I love it exactly how it is. But here's how I might change it if I was going to. So here's some considerations. One of the Gretchen could be replaced with a solo mech. And that solo mech, he could, be there to buff one of the trucks, to have one of the trucks shooting, say, all of the 2 units of tank busters out of the truck, so they're all hitting on 4s, so they don't have to get out. So the truck moves, then you're shooting 10 D3 blast rockets out of the truck, hitting on 4s. That's brutal, and it can absolutely just annihilate. It can annihilate your transports. It can annihilate very elite infantry without too much trouble. So it is actually a good strategy. I have found that I don't particularly like that strategy, but I've run it a few times. It's something that I still play around with, but that is a real consideration people could do. You could drop a Storm Boy unit. Most lists do not need two Storm Boys. The one Storm Boys, the reason why I take two Storm Boys is I really like having one Storm Boy that can advance and charge turn one to clear like a little skirmishing unit. And then I don't really care that the Storm Boys get killed in return because the Storm Boys are honestly just very low investment for me. The other Storm Boy is the unit that I will always have in reserves, and they're the ones that are going to drop, get me established locus, get me behind enemy lines, things like that. A truck could be dropped. You don't necessarily need 5 trucks. I have found that 5 trucks just enables the list a little bit more, but you could more or less do the same thing with 4 trucks. You could actually even do it with 3 trucks and a battle wagon, but I found that 5 trucks just works better. Then I would love to add Traka because I think he just improves every single list. But it's really hard to fit him when you're running the core of the list. And the core of the list is the 3 times Breaka Boys and the 3 times Tank Bustas. Gaz he's too many points. It's like almost a 300 point Braum when you add the 2 mandatory Mega Knobs that you need with him. And I've just found it doesn't really work if you're running the rest of the list. So I'm not taking Gaz right now. That doesn't mean Gaz is bad. Gaz is amazing. He's got places in other lists. He just doesn't have a great place in this list, in my opinion. The Nods War Boss unit rocks, and I love it. However, it could be another beast. Snag a squad very easily, but I just like the flexibility of the knobs. They go into a different target with that base strength 9 AP2 damage 2 that they put out. Then Hogs could increase the amount of bombs in the list, but they also actively decrease the mobility of the list. So if people wanted to take Squig Hog Boys, the problem is that your trucks and your Squig Hog Boys are going to be competing for movement lanes. So I think Squig Hogs are just a little too expensive for what they do, and by a little, I mean a lot. they really need a little bit of profile update. I think they need either base AP2, or at least their leader, the Beast Boss on Squigosaur, needs to give them +1 to hit. If they do those things, I think maybe there's a place for Squig Hogs, but as of right now, I just can't figure out how to do them, and I can't figure out how to be happy with them at least. Second Squad of Commandos is interesting, but honestly, there's rarely more than one critical place to drop Commandos. And if I drop Infiltrators first, I'm always going to claim that space. If my opponent drops Infiltrators first, there might be a secondary place that I could drop my Commandos effectively. But not always. So I just found that one is fine. I would be interested in running Snickrat, but the reality is I have enough MSU in this list, and I don't need another like tech piece. So not for me. And then lastly, I am very, very comfortable allowing the Commandos to die turn 1. It doesn't matter to me. Their job is to guarantee I do not give move block. Now, that being said, they are very fearsome into a lot of armies. If you're running into Elves, if you're running into Guard, if you're running into Tau, honestly, there's a lot of armies that really hate the Commandos because Commandos going first, they deploy 9 inches away from your opponent's lines. You can do that because you don't care if you die if you go first. Then they just move 6 inches, so they're 3 inches away from your front line. They throw the Squig Bomb. They can throw grenades. They can shoot a rocket, shoot a burner. They can just wipe a Howling Banshee squad in shooting without, honestly, all that much trouble. And then you just charge. You tag 2 tanks or you tag an infantry squad. It can cause really big problems for your opponents, and they can't be Overwatch because that's just their natural ability. So I'm very comfortable with them dying turn 1 if I go second, and if they go first, I will absolutely terrorize your alliance with them. Now, a few limitations of the list. Speed of play. You need to be able to take decisive action because the clock is not your friend. You've got a lot of units. Deployment. It really needs to be on point, so I highly recommend you practice your deployments if you want to run this list. It's very easy to throw the game turn 1 because you chose the wrong place for your commandos, meaning that your trucks are not necessarily able, or they're going to get move block turn 1. Or you've left your firing lane open, and then suddenly you just get annihilated turn 1. So you really have to have your deployment on point, so make sure that you take care of that. You have to check the enemy pre-game moves. Do not get move blocked. That is the best advice I possibly have for you. If you don't get move blocked, guys, this list wrecks. It is so good. I'm 21-1 with it right now. I've run it into WTC players. I've run it into people at the World Championships. It's nasty. Now, I haven't actually had the pleasure of running into Bridgehead yet, but I've run it into Legion of Excess. I've run it into Inari. I've run it into lots of the terrors of the meta right now. This Bridgehead, I just haven't gotten the opportunity to play. Well, I have, but it was like, it wasn't like the highest level player, so I'm not going to count that for like statistics, to be honest with you. So I still need to run it into like a higher level Bridgehead player. I just haven't had the match yet. But I'll come up with some strategies for that as well when I do. And I would imagine that it's going to be fairly draw-ish, because I can really push his deep strikes out quite a bit. I've got a lot of units in the army. So with that, guys, this was the list. It is the green this is the Mary Green go round. I'm in love with it. I'm very pleased. I'm very proud of the list that I made, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Until next time, crump on. Bye bye.